Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. We know that Harlem Berry has committed to LSU. What did LSU get here?
Yeah, one of the most explosive running backs in the country. We have him as the number one running back in America for the class of 2025. And you get Harlem Berry on board. You have Decorium Moore on board. Those are the top players at their positions in the 2025 class. And that's before we get to Bryce Underwood on Saturday, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit,
Yep.
as the number one quarterback and number one prospect. But Harlem Berry is so explosive. He's got the track times. He's got the speed that you want in a top flight running back. And he does it both running the football and catching it. He's shown that ability to make big plays, make the home run play, in whatever way St. Martin's gets him the ball. And so he's a really, really explosive back. Our analysts have compared him to Jamal Charles, and one of them even kind of floated the Reggie Bush comparison in terms of their play style. Reggie Bush is obviously unbelievable, but so is Harlem Berry in his own right. So that would be pretty great for LSU if it worked out that way. But just a really explosive back who can play all three downs, especially in the modern era of running backs and how they're used. So he's a guy that's been a big priority for Frank Wilson, and Frank Wilson was able to get him to commit early, which is even better for LSU. You know, it's kind of been building. It's funny, you look at Brian Kelly's first couple of classes here, and you saw in 2023, you saw some of those guys kind of be later commitments in the cycle from Louisiana, and then it got a little bit better in 2024 with some of the guys that jumped on board. And now in 2025, we're seeing Harlem Barry, Keelan Moses, and some of these other guys like Teron Francis and J.D. LaFleur. Brett Borlaug, of course, has been on board for a while, but they have a lot of guys in Louisiana who are jumping on board early, which bodes well, especially with a 2025 class that is supposed to be really good in the cycle.
Let's stick with Bryce Underwood here. He'll make his decision on Saturday. I want to ask you kind of about the player, but I also want to ask about the recruiting effort from LSU. Not a lot of quarterbacks from Michigan end up in Baton Rouge. How much is Joe Sloan involved here?
Well, let's be real here. You know, they struck gold in Ohio, and now that Michigan's, in the college football playoff, they're saying, you know what, let's move over there. No, but in all seriousness, quarterback recruiting is a little bit more national, and most of the top flight quarterback coaches know that they have to be good national recruiters and be able to walk into any scenario and situation and recruit them hard and reel them in. And Joe Sloan, won out with Colin Hurley. He won out with Ricky Collins, his first two quarterback commits and signees while in Baton Rouge. And now he went all the way up to Michigan to go get Bryce Underwood. And if he does, in fact, commit to LSU, which we expect him to on Saturday early evening, it'll just be a historic land on many levels for LSU. Not only you're getting a guy who could very well be number one draft pick at some point. That's the type of arm talent. That's the type of athletic ability he has to his game. But you also get just that statement piece where you can say, okay, all right, here's what our offense is going to look like in 2025 in terms of the guys that LSU is going to bring in. And they're all the number one, players at their positions, which is pretty darn rare in the recruiting era to get the triplets, so to speak, all lined up. And so LSU's closing in on that. You've, of course, got to sign them, but that is something with a quarterback where you feel pretty good that once they make these decisions, they, for the most part, do a good job of sticking with them because they have to invest in themselves. They have to invest in the players around them and recruit for them. You can't you can, but you don't really want to be flipping and flopping around and changing your decision because you've been trying to help build the team around you. And it's not necessarily the case that others would just follow you to wherever you went. But when you're committed and you're locked in like they'd expect Bryce Underwood to be, you could then really make inroads with some prospects that maybe you wouldn't necessarily be able to get in. So Joe Sloan's done a great job. He's pushed all the right buttons here with his family, with Bryce, everything. So that just looks like a guy that we're going to be talking about plenty over the next few years for LSU, and a historic piece to the class to once again potentially get on board early here.
How would you handicap Joe Sloan's chances at becoming the full-time offensive coordinator moving forward? I know you'll have a hot board up at On3, but what do you think Joe Sloan's chances are here?
Yeah, I don't know as much about the chances, so I want to word this right, but if I'm kind of guessing, educated guess a little bit,
sure,
I gotta believe he's the favorite.
Yeah.
What he did with Jaden Daniels, his development, and then you have what he did with Garrett Nussmeier in the bowl game, getting him ready for his first start and putting that together. And then on top of that, you're going to have Bryce Underwood coming in the future. I just think it makes a lot of sense to promote him. And he's a top young up-and-coming assistant. And if you don't promote him, this is kind of the line to walk for Brian Kelly, does that mean that he never be your pick at offensive coordinator if you go out and hire somebody else who gets a head coaching job? Would two more seasons, for example, of him seasoning and learning and developing Garrett Nussmeier and signing Bryce Underwood, would that change his overall situation enough? And if not, then Joe Sloan's got to go be a play caller somewhere. So that's why I kind of think he's the favorite on top of just his overall body of work that he's done since being at LSU. He's really, really sharp and done a great job. So it feels like he ends up being the OC, but Brian Kelly, I'm sure, is going to go do all of his due diligence and look at any options that are out there and go from there.
It's a high school all-star game season. A lot of those going on all throughout the country. Dominick McKinley appears to have had a pretty solid week. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, our national ranking team was out at the Under Armour practices and the game this week, and I caught up with them in San Antonio for the All-America Bowl, which is the Adidas Bowl, and they just raved about what Dominick McKinley was able to do on the field. He was explosive. He had dominant wins in one-on-ones against some of the best offensive linemen in the country, and he just showed that he is more technically sound, I would say, than even the film kind of suggests, because you can be as big and athletic as he is, which we've known about for a long, long time now. But when you do it at the high school level, you can kind of get away with things because you are that big and strong and fast. So when you go out and you play with the leverage he did and against some of the top offensive linemen and you dominate the way he did, that was really encouraging. So a stock-up performer is what Dominick McKinley walked away with. One of the top overall players that was at the Under Armour game, and he really, really showed out in a positive way. So LSU looking like they really struck gold getting him late.
And you saw a couple of other LSU commitments in person scouting these All-American practices. What can you tell us there?
Yeah, the one that really, I think, has cemented himself as a guy that should move up in the rankings from this group that was out there is Kylan Billiot, who is a former basketball player who's really locked in on playing football his last 2 years of high school. And, I mean, he looked much more polished than even I expected him to be when he was out there for the All-America Bowl. He was competitive. He beat some really good competition at the corner spot. So he looks like somebody that as he adds weight and continues to refine his craft, I think he's got a chance to be a draft pick without a doubt and have a big impact at LSU. He just seems to want it too, which is a big part of it. And he's an awesome kid. So I was really happy for him in that regard. And then they had Devon Keys out there as well, the linebacker signee, who had a really strong last day that I was out there watching him. So look for him in the game on Saturday on NBC at noon. And then they also have Juwan Johnson in the secondary, who's a little nicked up. I don't know if he's going to play. And then Kalaj Cobbins, who's a versatile linebacker who signed with LSU. And then at center, Cohen Eccles, the late addition from Katy, Texas, he was playing with some really nice leverage as well. I think he's a really good physical talent for LSU's offensive line. He'll take some time to kind of get his body a little bit in order, but he's stocky and can play with good leverage in the run game. So I liked what I saw from him as well.
You thought, well, this is a pretty good 12-minute segment there. That's a lot of information. This is, I promise you, the tip of the iceberg, what you get at the Bengal Tiger. They're pumping information by the truckload onto that message board. Shea Dixon, Matthew Bruni, Billy Embody. It's awesome. I've very much enjoyed being on there each and every day. And, Billy, we appreciate you coming on.
Anytime, Hunt. Thanks for having me.
Billy Embody, part of the Bengal Tiger on the On3 network. They're all over the place right now with the portal, LSU looking for defensive coaches, high school recruiting, all-star games. They've got you covered over there at the Bengal Tiger. Appreciate Billy for giving us a little bit of information. I think this class that they put together looks really strong, in my opinion, based on the quality of the players in the state. Now, as we know, half your guys may bolt. A&M put together the greatest recruiting class in the history of the world, and half of them left, maybe more than half, after 2 years. So we understand what that means this day and age. But if you start to look ahead at the class to follow, the 2025 class, and if Bryce Underwood would to commit to LSU tomorrow and they were to keep this group together, it looks really, really good based on the in-state guys and what they can do outside the state. LSU's bringing in a lot of really good high school players, and I still contend that's the best way to do this thing, is to go heavy high school and then supplement from the transfer portal. We'll see if Ole Miss proves me wrong next year. But, of course, we'll just have to find out next fall. But I think LSU's in a pretty good spot in terms of the health of the program. I think there are some question marks defensively moving into next year, but they're trying to fix it as quickly as possible. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.